Hello, and welcome to myfinanceteacher.org. Today we will look at the valuation of IAMGold Corporation. This miner was suggested by a viewer on YouTube. Thank you, Rashad, for the suggestion. And Rashad, yes, as you wrote, it is an interesting case of good long-term potential with currently depressed stock price. Despite the fact that this company was suggested by Rashad on YouTube, this video will be first published for members at myfinanceteacher.org, and only after a few days, after the stock price appreciates a little bit, this video will be published publicly on YouTube. In this valuation, I used 2019 annual reports data to isolate the effects of additional costs or slowdowns due to the well-known virus issues. However, I also looked at 2020 Q1, the first quarter data from 2020, and it doesn't really change the results noticeably at all. So all this analysis is still relevant, especially in the long term. As usual, we'll consider three scenarios: balanced, conservative, and optimistic. The balanced scenario involves a gold price of $1,684, and that is at the moment 2.5% below the spot price. Conservative scenario involves a gold price of $1,550, that is 10% below the balanced price. And the optimistic scenario involves a gold price of $1,852, that is 10% above the gold price in the balanced scenario. Looking at the company's reserves and the costs of producing those reserves, the cost of getting those reserves out of the ground, proven and probable reserves of gold are 16.7 million ounces. And measured and indicated gold resources are 27.1 million ounces. Both in conservative and the balanced scenarios, we are going to ignore the measured and indicated resources completely as if there is nothing there, and only in the optimistic scenario we're going to include half of these resources, that is 13.7 million ounces. And the costs of producing gold, all-in sustaining costs in this case, are $1,180 per ounce. Looking at long-term debt and number of shares outstanding, long-term debt is at $403 million. And the company has 471 million of shares outstanding. And out of those shares, slightly more than 0.5%, 0.53%, are held by insiders. We're looking at it because insiders might be strong hands, which might help to support stock price. Reserves over annual production actually gives us 22 years in reserves. We are using this information in discounting future gold production, so we do take into account the time value of money. And the discount rate we use is 2%. It's a relatively low discount rate, but this is low because we're not actually looking at some fiat cash in future. Remember, we are discounting the actual gold production. So a relatively low discount rate is appropriate in my opinion. So for our conservative scenario, this is the data that we're going to use. And all of that data gives us a valuation of $8.88, which is a very impressive valuation compared to the current market price, which is quite lower at only $3.74. The market closed on Friday. The main reason for a high valuation is, of course, relatively good reserves that the company has, as we've seen from the data above, and as mentioned by Rashad in his comment on YouTube. Next, looking at balanced scenario, all the data inputs are the same except for the gold price. We use the gold price of $1,684. The balanced scenario with a higher gold price actually gives us a valuation of $13.69, which is again very impressively higher than the current market price of $3.74. And lastly, for the optimistic scenario, we're going to increase gold price further to $1,868, and we're going to include half of measured and indicated resources, and that half is at 13.6 million ounces. The rest of the data is the same, and that gives us a very, very impressive $29.08 valuation per share, at a given market price of $3.74 at the moment. So in the long term, I think there is a very interesting potential in this company. However, why is the market price so depressed? I tried to dig into that, and one possible reason is that the company had a lot of losses over the last few quarters, including the first quarter in 2020 and some of the quarters last year as well. So let's have a look at this income statement. The operating profit is actually nearly $9 million just in the first quarter of 2020. That's actually $8.7 million. But this operating profit is turned into a large loss, nearly $33 million, and that's mostly due to losses on derivatives and other investments. The losses on derivatives and other investments are $26.5 million just in the first quarter of 2020. And I digged a little bit further and found out that these losses on derivatives and other investments are not actually hedging for such inputs as, say, energy price, because hedging for those inputs was actually mentioned and shown elsewhere in the company reports. So besides this, hedging energy prices also created some losses, as of course oil price dropped recently. Hence, market price might be depressed, maybe mostly because the management makes unwise investment decisions. Whether these losses based on unwise investments will continue happening in future or not, well, I guess that remains to be seen. That is still an open question. For now, moving on to the charts, what the charts tell me is that the support zone below the current price, if stock price declines, would be based on these summer and autumn 2019 lows. That would be somewhere at about $3.2. And the resistance levels above the current market price, firstly, would be at $4.6. That's based at late 2016 and early 2017 highs. And the next resistance level beyond that would be here at $4.8. And that's based on late 2017 and early 2018 lows. But over a short term, as gold is still relatively early in its cycle, I think there is a good chance that IAG will actually appreciate over the next few weeks. So for that reason, and because of the very good valuation of the resources in the ground, actually, despite the manager's poor investment decisions, I personally am going to buy a few shares of IAG on Monday, possibly increasing my allocation, my position in precious metals from the current 95%, as I mentioned in many of my previous videos, to maybe 96-97%. Of course, if you are a member at myfinancesteacher.org, I will keep you posted on all of the investment decisions I make. And if you are watching on YouTube after IAG has appreciated a little bit, consider joining us at myfinancesteacher.org. If you like this analysis, I would also appreciate if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you are considering to join us at myfinancesteacher.org, we review a range of assets, including precious metals, mostly gold and silver, general stock market, energy industry, as well as cryptocurrencies. And besides my personal analysis, I have a business partner who writes these investment newsletters where he shares his experience of investing over a number of decades. All this analysis and the newsletters are posted in reverse chronological order on the homepage, and if you're looking for something particular, you can scroll down to categories and choose either those chart analyses or the newsletter here. For now though, I do wish you to have a very nice weekend, and of course, good luck in your trades.